If you're like me and you're still a virgin in your mid-20s or 30s, I guarantee you by the end of this video, you're gonna feel a lot better about your situation. If not, feel free to let me know down in the comments. But I think that this is gonna be your key. It's time men as a collective release ourselves from the shackles and bonds of desire. To tell you the truth, being a virgin really bothered me up until about the lockdowns. And I'll get into what changed, but first let's look at how it all started. So how did I get to the age of 28 without losing my virginity? Well, a lot of you guys might relate to this experience. It all started in middle school. In elementary school, all the girls thought I was cute. But then something happened. I had a precocious puberty because of all the chemicals that I consumed. And it led to me having strange thoughts and desires at an early age. And one of the things I did was I became like a self-feeder, where I got off on making myself get fat. So I would eat all the worst, most unhealthy foods in large quantities, as much as I could get a hold of, until eventually, by age 13, I was a little fat and women were not interested in me anymore. And it really all changed once I saw this girl that I really had a crush on in middle school. And I went about it the wrong way. I put a note in her backpack, and turned out that's a stalkery thing to do. So, you know, a lot of rumors were spread and I became very depressed. But it also made me really want to buckle down and say, hey, I'm going to make myself more attractive so that these girls regret treating me this way. So I ended up losing like 30 pounds in that last 6 months of school. And by the time high school started, I was looking good. I had a new haircut and I started out high school really optimistic. I got a lot of positive attention that first year. But what changed? Well, I hadn't grown since I was 12 years old. And as girls, you know, aged up and matured and watched the boys go through puberty, they saw I wasn't developing anymore and were losing interest. One thing that had a really negative effect on me was I had a crush on another girl when I was 14 in 9th grade. And I actually did talk to her and did become friends with her, but I became super jealous. And there were other guys that were trying to get her attention too. I was too afraid to ask her out. I drew her this beautiful picture and wrote this poem and gave it to her. And, you know, apparently she brought it home and her dad found it. I think she was tired of the attention from me and told her dad about it. So they called the school and made a big hoopla about it and switched all our classes up. And, you know, by the middle of high school, I just had horrible self-esteem and wanted to ask girls out, but didn't. And I started to work out a lot and really try to build my muscle up and stuff. And by the time I went to a new school in the last year and a half of high school, I was really fit, but I still hadn't grown. And every time I would ask a girl out, none of them were interested, which is interesting because others were telling me that I looked good. So it was all very confusing. And I thought, okay, college, that's going to change. So I got into college, and I will let you know that the type of women I liked at that time in my life were very feminine, birthing hips, fertility goddess type women, really overweight, but all in the right places, if you know what I mean. And they're kind of rare, and they tend to have a lot of estrogen, so they tend to like guys who would make really good providers, which I am not because I'm 5'4". Even with all the muscle, it didn't seem to matter. Even with an attractive face, it didn't seem to matter. I was height locked. So as I went through college, I asked more girls out, got more rejection, until finally I was about ready to unalive, really literally about to do it, and something snapped in my brain, and suddenly I went from being this wannabe macho alpha male to this submissive guy that wants to be towered over and controlled, if you know what I mean. I can't use the D word, rhymes with nominated, by tall, powerful, masculine-looking women. And ever since then, that's been my thing. And I still appreciate the fertility goddess ones, but I thought, wow, this new type of woman that I like, that's going to open up so many possibilities, because before I didn't even want to be seen next to a tall girl. They made me feel emasculated, and I actually had nightmares about them. But now I love it. But it didn't pan out that way. Throughout college, I asked out several tall girls, and it all just ended in disappointment. And it was about at that point, around 2018, where I was like, you know what? I'm going to really focus on my career, and that's how the women are going to come to me, you know? That said, between 2018 and 2020, I was still using dating apps all the time. And, you know, occasionally going out on dates with girls from there. It always fizzled out. They almost always ghosted me. And then something happened in 2020 that changed my perspective forever. So leading up to that year, in 2019, I graduated college. I got really lucky. I met somebody who got me connected with this really cool job at this cannabis startup, and I had an undefined role. I was able to just really go full on into the grind, and I was super excited. But that excitement sort of died down after about 4 months when I realized that they didn't seem to appreciate all the above and beyond work I did. And in fact, it put a target on my back because I was very ambitious and they didn't like that. Throughout that time, I was mainly focused on work, but because I was making more money, I was trying like dating app, like pro versions to try and get boosts and stuff like that. And I still wasn't getting anywhere. And I started watching black pill videos like the Eggman and started to get really down on myself. And I ran an experiment where I set my height to 6'4" instead of 5'4", and all of a sudden, dozens of matches started rolling in. I read a bunch of studies around that time regarding height for the first time ever that really confirmed my ideas of height being connected to money and status and education and promotions, leadership positions, respect, basically every aspect of life. And I always thought that was the case, you know, as I went through college and started seeing all the tall girls had the nicest cars and the nicest laptops, etc. And as cool as it was to have all of my theories confirmed, it destroyed my self-esteem. It made me feel like, wow, what's the point in even trying to succeed, let alone lose my virginity? Like I became really depressed after that. But I also discovered kratom around that time. And it really, it changed my life. I got through all the worst office politics with articulation and diplomacy. And I actually went on a trip to San Francisco and met this beautiful 6'2" German girl. And we spent the day together, and I came back the next week and spent the day with her again. But turned out the next time I saw her, it seemed like she wasn't as interested in, you know, stuff like holding hands or anything like that. She said, I don't want people to think we're some old couple. And I was like, damn, that kind of hurts my feelings, you know? Now, some of you might say, well, why don't you just hire a streetwalker? And to that I say, I've looked into it, but it's very hard to find a streetwalker who is over 6 feet tall and a woman, because women that are over 6 feet tall tend to come from privileged backgrounds, and they tend not to resort to that kind of way to make money. The other thing is that I don't care that much. My virginity is not something that's hurting my pride at this point in my life anymore. But once the lockdown hit, that's when isolation kicked in. And it was around that time where I started focusing full in on starting my own business. And from the years of 2020 till now, that has been my main focus. And it replaced my drive to lose my virginity and all that. But there's more to it than that. The kratom also lowers your libido over time. So I was isolated. My libido had gone down because of the kratom. I was black-pilled from the height studies, and I was focused on entrepreneurship. As the years went on, I just cared less and less, and the burnout kicked in because after a long time of trying on my business, haven't had as much success as I wanted to, and depression kicked in, and all those things combined really do a number to your virility. And as a result, I no longer care about losing my virginity, but I'm kind of turning asexual, and it kind of sucks because those kind of thoughts were the spice of my life, I'm now realizing, because I used to have fun and enjoy myself just going to a store or going to an event and comparing myself to all the tall women there and just really feeling like super aroused from all that. I used to come up with all these gaming scenarios where I would use mods or custom maps and stuff like that, where I was correlating the whole size supremacy idea from the real world into games. I would play it like Fallout New Vegas or Skyrim as a puny, stunted runt who was weak and inferior and struggled to survive. And then I would put in this Amazonian goddess who would take care of me and protect me. But now I just no longer have time for all that stuff anymore. My business has taken over my life, and I don't really feel as motivated to play those kinds of games anymore and get off on it. I started to only care about my success and what kind of impact I would have on the future of humanity. And after the years have gone by, I've started to even care less and less about that. Truth is, I thought that women would come into my life once I achieved something, but no matter how hard I try, nothing seems to go well for me in my life. So I'm giving up all hope, and it feels good. It's liberating. But the number one reason why I stopped caring about losing my virginity came from a series of psychedelic journeys that sort of shaped my belief system that I have now, that helps me feel a lot more comfortable with the idea of death and missing out on stuff. I no longer feel the need to travel. I no longer feel the need to experience anything novel in my life. I would be perfectly happy going to the grave without ever leaving California or experiencing intimacy or anything like that. What I believe, and you can let me know what you think about this in the comments, is that every living being, every conscious sentient being in the universe, even AI, is the same soul. And we will all experience existence as every other being that ever existed, past, present, or future. So I'll get to experience being that tall alpha male guy. I'll also get to experience being the lowest of the low. And the tall alpha male guy that bullies the little guy, he'll also have to experience the life of the little guy he bullies. And the more suffering that we bring into the world, the more we're going to have to suffer when we live those other lives. And that's the only way that justice can really happen in the universe, because karma doesn't happen in the same lifetime. It happens over the course of the entirety of the universe. And if you think that we only have one life, or every person lives a series of lives but doesn't live every other life, then in that case, justice would not exist in the universe. Because why should a person who had everything in life get the same opportunity to have just as good of an afterlife as somebody who had the worst life? So basically, if I don't experience all the things that I wanted to experience in this life, I'll just be experiencing them in whatever myriad of other lives I'll have on this planet or whatever other planet. Even success no longer matters to me. All that matters to me is spreading my message. And even if it doesn't gain traction until after I die, that's okay. Once I've posted enough of these videos, I can die satisfied. I would happily go to my grave a virgin. Even if the afterlife is nothing but a black, endless void, that's okay. Because I just don't care anymore, and it feels good. And honestly, I hope that the afterlife is a black, endless void. I would actually rather it be that than a series of reincarnated lives. Because the truth is, I just want to rest. And if reincarnation is real, the ultimate goal is to put an end to the rat race and the cycle and the matrix anyway. Now, I want to close this out with a very important message. Society can't force you to be its beast of burden if it loses its carrot on a stick. If you stop caring about sex or money, they've got nothing left to hook you with. If enough men become like me, society will begin to feel the pain. And we will eventually win this slow siege of attrition once they realize that they can no longer ignore our plight because it's affecting them. So if you like having your thoughts and feelings validated instead of gaslighted and being told it's all your fault all the time, subscribe to my channel. I'll be doing more videos like this. My goal is to hit 100 subscribers by May. And check out my previous video where I go over why it's okay to feel inadequate when comparing yourself to social media influencers and people who have better lives, and why college is basically pointless for young men in our generation in the year 2025.